She held my hand at my husband's funeral. 3 weeks later, she called CPS on me. My kids had nightmares for weeks about being taken away. And the whole time she was just waiting for her moment. I know how I got her 15 years in prison sounds impossible. Let me tell you how I set the trap. The morning after Carol's sentencing, I sit at my kitchen table with coffee going cold in my hands, watching my kids eat breakfast like normal children again. They're laughing about something silly, and I realize this is the first morning in months where I haven't seen fear in their eyes. My daughter is telling her brother a joke about a dinosaur, and he's giggling so hard milk almost comes out of his nose. I should feel happy, but instead I feel empty. Like I've been running on nothing but anger for so long that I don't know what to do now that it's over. I need to explain how we got here. How I turned Carol's own moves against her and made sure she could never hurt us again. It started the night of the CPS visit, after I got both kids to sleep despite their bad dreams. I sat in the dark living room, going over every interaction with Carol since my husband died, and suddenly all the pieces fit together. The grocery store scene, the school visit, the detailed CPS report with all those specific things about our daily life. She wasn't just being an annoying grandmother. She was building a case to take my children. Every move was planned. Every word was meant to make me look bad. The next morning, I call Kyrie Miller, a therapist my friend told me about months ago that I'd been too proud to contact. I tell her everything. The CPS visit, Carol's harassment, my feeling that this is just the beginning. Kyrie listens carefully and says something that changes everything. She tells me to document everything, but also to understand Carol's mind. She thinks she's saving them. During our first session, Kyrie helps me see that Carol isn't going to stop because she really believes I'm unfit, and she's the hero. She explains that people like Carol get worse when their first attempts fail, and the CPS investigation finding nothing wrong will make her more desperate. I realize I need to think 3 steps ahead instead of just reacting. I spend the next 2 days putting security cameras all through the house, focusing especially on doors in the kids' rooms. The installation guy asks if I've had break-ins, and I just say I want peace of mind. I don't tell him I'm setting a trap, because I don't fully know what I'm planning yet. I just know I need proof of whatever Carol does next. That weekend, I take the kids to my sister's house and spend hours looking at Carol's pattern of behavior. The grocery store thing wasn't random. She picked a crowded time to get the most witnesses. The school visit happened right after I posted on social media about having a hard day. Every action was planned and timed to make me look unstable. I meet with Quentin Caldwell, a family lawyer Kyrie recommended, and lay out everything Carol has done. He reviews the CPS report and points out something important. The caller gave specific details about my daily routine, my children's schedules, and my home layout. Only someone with access to our lives could know these things, and Carol has been in my house dozens of times. Quentin explains that Carol's behavior is harassment and possibly stalking, but proving her intent to take the children requires catching her in an obvious act. He suggests I document every contact, save every voicemail, and be ready for her to get worse. He also warns me that grandparents' rights cases can be hard, especially when the grandmother claims concern for the children's welfare. 2 weeks after the CPS visit, Carol calls me for the first time since the investigation. Her voice is sweet like sugar as she asks how the children are doing and mentions she'd love to take them for a weekend to give me a break. I record the call and note how she never asks about me, only about getting to the kids. I tell her we're not ready for overnight visits yet. Carol's response is immediate. She shows up at my daughter's school the next day during pickup. The teacher later tells me Carol came up to her in the parking lot, talking about my daughter's emotional state and asking if she's noticed any signs of neglect. The teacher, who knows our family well, firmly tells Carol that my daughter is doing great and reports the interaction to the principal. The principal calls me 2 days after Carol's parking lot scene. She introduces herself and tells me they've put a flag in their system about Carol. The school won't allow her on campus anymore without my written permission each time. She says this isn't their first time dealing with grandparents who cross boundaries and they take these situations very seriously. I thank her 3 times because I'm so relieved I can barely speak. After we hang up, I add the principal's report to my documentation folder, which is getting thick enough to need a second binder. My next therapy session with Kyrie happens on a Thursday afternoon while the kids are at the school. I sit on her couch and tell her I'm so angry I can't sleep. I keep imagining myself showing up at Carol's house and screaming at her until she understands what she's done to my children. Kyrie listens and then asks me what I think Carol wants most. I say she wants my kids, and Kyrie shakes her head. She says Carol wants me to lose control. She wants me to do something that proves I'm unstable, something she can use against me. Kyrie teaches me this breathing thing where I count to 7 and imagine the anger leaving my body like smoke. It sounds stupid, but it actually helps. She reminds me that staying calm and thinking clearly is my best weapon right now. That night after the kids go to bed, I sit at my computer and open the security camera app. I start reviewing footage from the past 2 weeks, fast-forwarding through hours of nothing. Then I see Carol's car. She drives past my house slowly on a Tuesday morning. I rewind and watch it again. She comes back on Thursday evening, even slower this time. On Saturday afternoon, she stops completely across the street and takes photos with her phone. She doesn't know about the cameras, so she's not trying to hide what she's doing. My hands shake as I save all 3 video clips. I email them to Quentin with the subject line, "She's watching us." He responds within an hour saying this is perfect, that it shows a pattern of harassment and surveillance that strengthens our case. I decide to test something. On Wednesday morning, I post on social media about taking the kids to the Children's Museum on Saturday. I make sure my privacy settings allow Carol to see the post. Then I sit back and wait. Saturday comes and we actually go to the museum like I said we would. That night, I check the security footage. Carol drove by my house twice that afternoon while we were gone. She slowed down both times, looking at the windows, checking to see if anyone was home. I watched the footage 3 times, and each time my stomach gets tighter. She's not just harassing me anymore. She's planning something that requires us to be away from the house. Quentin calls me on Monday morning. His voice sounds different, more serious than usual. He says he has an idea, but he needs me to hear him out before I say no. Then he suggests that I create a situation where Carol can act on whatever she's planning, but in a way we control. We'd catch her doing whatever she intends to do, with cameras recording everything. My stomach flips over. I tell him it sounds like I'm using my kids as bait. He says no, the kids would be nowhere near any danger. We'd make sure they're safe somewhere else while Carol thinks we're gone. I tell him I need time to think about it. He says that's fine, but to remember that right now we're just waiting for Carol to do something when we're not ready. This way, we'd be ready. I spend the whole week thinking about it. I can't eat. I can't focus on anything. During my next session, I tell Kyrie about Quentin's idea. She asks me what scares me most about it. I say I'm scared it makes me as bad as Carol, that I'm manipulating the situation. Kyrie leans forward and says something that changes everything. She says I'm not creating Carol's bad intentions. Those already exist. I'm just giving her the chance to reveal them in a way that protects my children. She asks me what happens if I don't do this. I realize that Carol will eventually act anyway, probably when I'm not prepared, and that could actually put my kids at real risk. By the end of the session, I understand that protecting my children means being one step ahead, not just reacting to whatever Carol does next. Carol stops calling. She stops showing up at the school. For 2 weeks, I don't hear from her at all. This worries me more than all her harassment combined. I call Quentin and tell him something feels wrong. He says this is normal behavior for people like Carol. She's either planning her next move carefully, or she's meeting with a lawyer about grandparents' rights. He files an official harassment complaint with the police department. He warns me it probably won't lead to immediate action, but it creates a paper trail. He says if Carol does anything else, we'll have documentation showing a pattern. 2 days later, a thick envelope arrives from a law firm I've never heard of. Inside is a formal letter on expensive paper. The lawyers represent Carol. They're requesting regular visitation with my children. If I don't agree, they'll file for grandparents' rights in court. The letter lists all these accusations about my mental state, my parenting abilities, how I'm keeping the children from their grandmother during their grief. It says my husband would have wanted his mother involved in raising his children. I read it twice and then I throw up in the kitchen sink. But after I rinse my mouth out, I realize something. This proves Carol's campaign is getting worse. This is exactly the escalation Kyrie predicted. Quentin sends a response letter that same week. He refuses their visitation request completely. His letter includes a detailed timeline of Carol's harassment, starting with the false CPS report. He lists the school incidents, the surveillance footage, everything we've documented. He makes it clear we have extensive evidence and will fight any custody action she tries to file. At the end, he mentions we're considering a restraining order if the harassment continues. He sends me a copy and I read it 5 times. It feels good to see everything written out like that. All official and undeniable. That weekend, my phone rings with Carol's number. I almost don't answer, but then I remember I need to document everything. I hit record on my phone app and pick up. Carol is crying so hard she can barely talk. She begs to see the children. She says she's sorry if she overstepped. She claims she's just a grieving grandmother who wants to be part of her grandchildren's lives. Her voice sounds so sad and genuine that for 1 second, I almost believe her. But then I remember my daughter screaming when the CPS workers showed up. I remember my son asking me if the people were going to take him away. I tell Carol we can maybe discuss supervised visits in the future, but right now we all need space to heal. She starts crying harder and hangs up. I bring up the movie during our next phone call, making my voice sound light and normal. We're taking the kids to see that new animated thing on Saturday afternoon, the one with the talking animals they keep asking about. The theater on Maple Street, the 2 o'clock showing. Carol's whole tone changes when I say it. She asks which theater again, what time exactly, says maybe she'll take her neighbor's grandkids to see it too. My heart pounds so hard I think she can hear it through the phone, but I keep my voice steady and give her all the details. After we hang up, I call Quentin right away. Over the next 3 days, Quentin and I go through everything twice. We check that the security cameras save to cloud storage, the kind Carol can't touch or erase even if she finds them. We make sure the timestamps will hold up in court. Quentin writes out exactly what I should say when I call 911, keeping it simple and factual. We talk about the kids, how they'll be safe with me at the movies, having fun and eating popcorn while Carol shows us who she really is. I practice the 911 script 5 times until I can say it without my voice shaking. The closer Saturday gets, the worse my stomach feels. I can't sleep right. I keep thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. During my session with Kyrie, I tell her I feel like I'm doing something terrible. She asks me what Carol would do if I didn't set this up. I realize Carol would do it anyway. Probably when I'm not ready. Maybe when the kids are home. Kyrie reminds me I'm not creating Carol's plan. I'm just giving her the chance to show it. I practice breathing exercises and keeping my phone ready. I tell myself the cameras will record the truth. Friday night feels endless. I put the kids to bed and sit in the kitchen staring at my phone. What if Carol doesn't come? What if she does something I haven't thought of? What if this makes me look like I'm playing games with my kids' safety? I call Quentin at 10 at night, my hands shaking. He talks me down for 20 minutes. He reminds me Carol already called CPS, already threatened legal action, already stalked us. We're not making her do anything. We're just documenting what she does when she thinks nobody's watching. Saturday morning comes too fast. I get my daughter into her favorite shirt, and my son into his superhero hoodie. They're bouncing around asking about popcorn and candy. I smile and act like everything's fine while my insides twist into knots. My daughter has no idea her grandmother is about to ruin everything. My son keeps asking if we can sit in the back row. I check the security app one more time, making sure it's working. Then we get in the car. We get to the theater 20 minutes early. I buy 3 tickets, a large popcorn, and way too much candy. The kids are jumping up and down, so excited they can barely stand still. I keep my phone in my jacket pocket with the sound turned up. We find seats in the middle section. My daughter sits between me and my son. The lights go down and the previews start. Then my phone buzzes against my ribs, the motion alert from the front door camera. My hands shake so bad I almost drop my phone opening the app. There she is. Carol, letting herself in with the spare key my husband gave her years ago, back when he was alive and we trusted her. She looks around the living room carefully, checking to make sure we're really gone. She's wearing gloves. Actual gloves, like she knows she's committing a crime. My stomach drops. This isn't a confused grandmother making a mistake. This is someone who planned this. Carol walks straight through the living room toward the bedrooms. She doesn't hesitate, doesn't look around much. She opens my daughter's closet and starts pulling out clothes, laying them on the bed in neat piles. She's not rushing or panicking. She's calm, organized, like she's done this before in her head. She pulls out the small suitcase I keep under the bed for weekend trips. She starts packing my daughter's favorite dresses, the ones with the flowers, the purple sweater she wears all the time. I'm sitting in the dark watching my mother-in-law pack my child's clothes and I want to scream. The rage makes my whole body hot, but Kyrie's voice is in my head telling me to document, not react. I start screen recording on my phone, capturing every second of Carol going through my daughter's things. My daughter leans over and whispers if I'm okay. I realize tears are running down my face. I whisper back that I'm fine, just emotional about the movie, and she pats my hand. Carol finishes with my daughter's room and moves to my son's. She does the same thing, methodical and careful. She packs his clothes, his stuffed elephant, the blue blanket he's had since he was a baby. She's taking everything that would make them feel safe somewhere new. Everything they'd need if someone took them away from home. The way she's doing it makes me feel sick. This isn't a grandmother's mistake. This is a planned kidnapping, and she's been thinking about it for weeks. Carol walks down the hall toward my home office. I watch her push open the door and go straight to my desk. She pulls open the file drawer and starts looking through folders. My hands are shaking so bad I almost drop my phone. She finds the folder with all our important papers. Birth certificates for both kids. Social security cards. My daughter's passport from when we went to Canada 2 years ago. Medical records with vaccination dates and doctor information. Carol pulls everything out and looks through each document carefully. She's not just grabbing things randomly. She knows exactly what she needs. She stuffs the papers into her purse, checking each one before she puts it in. This isn't about a visit anymore. This is about taking my kids somewhere I can't find them. This is about having everything she'd need to enroll them in the school, take them to doctors, maybe even leave the state. The way she's going through everything so carefully makes me want to throw up. She planned this down to the last detail. I stand up so fast my seat tips backward. The people in the row behind me look annoyed, but I don't care. I push past my daughter's knees and stumble into the aisle. My heart is beating so hard it hurts. I make it to the lobby and my hands are shaking so bad it takes me 3 tries to unlock my phone. I dial 911 and put the phone to my ear. The ringing sounds so loud. A woman answers and asks what my emergency is. I force my voice to stay calm and clear. I tell her someone broke into my house and is stealing my children's belongings and legal documents. I tell her I'm watching it happen right now on my security cameras. I tell her I need police there right away. My voice only shakes a little bit. The dispatcher asks if I'm in danger, and I explain I'm at the movies with my kids, but someone is in my home right now. She asks for my address, and I give it to her. She tells me officers are being sent and asks me to stay on the line. The dispatcher confirms my address again and tells me help is on the way. She asks me to describe what I'm seeing. I watch my phone screen while I talk. Carol is carrying the first suitcase toward the front door now. I describe how she packed suitcases full of my children's clothes. I describe how she took important documents from my office. I describe how she's moving through my house like she owns it. The dispatcher asks if I know who the person is. I say yes. I say it's my mother-in-law. I say I did not give her permission to be in my home. I say I did not give her permission to take anything. My voice gets stronger as I talk. This is really happening. Carol is really getting caught. The dispatcher asks more questions and I answer each one. I keep watching Carol on my phone. She's at the front door now with the first suitcase. Carol sets the suitcase down and goes back inside. I watch her walk to my daughter's room again. She picks up the second suitcase and my daughter's stuffed unicorn, the purple one she sleeps with every night. Carol is taking everything that would make my kids feel safe somewhere new. She's taking their favorite things. The dispatcher tells me officers are 2 minutes away. She asks me to stay on the line. I lean against the wall in the lobby and watch Carol carry the second suitcase toward the front door. She's moving faster now. She probably wants everything loaded before we get home. She probably thinks she has plenty of time. She has no idea police are almost there. She has no idea I set this whole thing up. My stomach feels sick but also excited. This is working. This is actually working. Carol opens her car trunk. I watch her lift the first suitcase and put it inside. She goes back for the second one. She's loading the second suitcase when a police car pulls into my driveway. The red and blue lights flash across my phone screen. Carol freezes with the suitcase halfway into the trunk. Then she closes the trunk and turns around with this big smile on her face. Like she has every right to be there. Like she's just a grandmother doing something nice. 2 officers get out of the car. One of them is Nathan Guerrero. I can see their hands near their weapons as they walk toward Carol. They're being careful because they don't know what they're walking into. I can't hear what anyone is saying, but I watch Carol gesture toward my house. She's probably telling them she's the grandmother. She's probably saying she has permission. Her face looks confident. She thinks she can talk her way out of this. The dispatcher asks if I'm still watching. I tell her yes. I tell her police just arrived and they're talking to the suspect. She tells me an officer will call me soon. She tells me I can hang up now. I say thank you and end the call. I stand in the movie theater lobby with my phone in my shaking hands. I watch Carol's face on my screen. She's still smiling, but it looks forced now. The officers are asking her questions. Her smile gets smaller. She says something and points at the house again. Nathan shakes his head. His partner walks toward the house to look inside. Carol's smile disappears completely. Her face changes from confident to confused, then confused to scared. She's starting to understand this isn't going the way she planned. She's starting to realize she's in real trouble. I watch her face crumble and I feel this weird mix of victory and sadness. This is my husband's mother. This is my children's grandmother. But she forced me to do this. She left me no choice. My phone rings and I almost drop it. The screen says unknown number. I answer and a man's voice asks if this is the homeowner at my address. I say yes. He tells me his name is Nathan Guerrero and he's a police officer at my house right now. He asks if I'm the person who called 911. I say yes. I say I'm at the theater with my children. I say I did not give anyone permission to enter my home or take anything. He asks about the woman they stopped. I explain she's my mother-in-law. I explain she has a spare key from when my husband was alive. I explain she does not have permission to be in my house. I explain she does not have permission to take my children's things. My voice is steady now. All the fear is gone. This is just facts. Nathan listens without interrupting. Nathan asks me to walk him through what I saw on the cameras. I describe Carol letting herself in with the key. I describe her packing my daughter's clothes and my son's clothes into suitcases. I describe her taking legal documents from my office. Birth certificates, social security cards, passports, medical records, everything. Nathan asks if I can send him the footage. I tell him it's saved to cloud storage and I can give him access right away. He's quiet for a second. Then he tells me they're placing Carol under arrest for breaking and entering. He says there might be more charges once they look at everything she took. I feel my whole body relax. It worked. The trap actually worked. I watch through my phone camera as Nathan's partner walks Carol to the police car. The partner is putting handcuffs on her. Carol is crying. Her mouth is moving, but I can't hear what she's saying. Nathan walks back into my house carrying both suitcases. He's putting them back inside. His partner opens the back door of the police car and helps Carol get in. She's still crying. I watch her face through the car window. She looks so small and old. This is my children's grandmother. This is the woman who held my hand at my husband's funeral. But she also called CPS on me. She also tried to take my kids. I feel triumph and sadness all mixed together. She forced me to do this. I had to protect my children. There was no other way. Nathan tells me I need to come home to give a statement. He tells me I need to secure my house and change the locks. I ask if I can finish the movie first. I explain my kids are already scared enough without me dragging them out of the theater. I explain they don't know what just happened. Nathan is quiet for a second. Then he says okay. He says he'll wait at my house. I thank him. I hang up the phone and stand in the lobby for a minute. My legs feel weak. My hands are still shaking. I did it. I actually did it. Carol is in handcuffs in a police car. My kids are safe. I walk back into the theater and find my seat. My daughter looks over at me. I smile at her and she smiles back. Then she turns back to the movie. My son is eating popcorn and laughing at something on the screen. They have no idea their grandmother just tried to kidnap them. They have no idea everything just changed. I sit in the dark and watch the rest of the movie. I don't see any of it. All I can think about is Carol in that police car and my kids safe beside me. I can't focus on the movie. My mind keeps jumping to Carol at the police station. They're probably taking her fingerprints right now, taking her photo, calling her lawyer, the charges she'll face, breaking and entering for sure, maybe attempted kidnapping, maybe theft. My kids sit next to me laughing at something on screen and I wonder how I'll explain this to them. How do I tell my daughter that grandma tried to take her away? How do I tell my son that the woman who used to make him cookies is going to prison? I think about my husband. I wonder if he's watching this somehow. I wonder if he'd understand why I had to do this. If he'd forgive me for destroying his mother, or if he'd be proud that I protected our kids. The movie keeps playing, but I don't see any of it. I just see Carol's face when the police car pulled up. That moment when she realized she was caught. The credits roll and my daughter jumps up excited. She's talking about her favorite parts and my son is asking if we can get ice cream. They're so happy, so normal. They have no idea what just happened. We walk to the car and I buckle them in and drive home. Nathan's police car is still in my driveway. The sight of it makes my stomach flip. This is really happening. Carol is really under arrest. I park and turn to the kids. I tell them a police officer needs to talk to mommy about some boring grown-up stuff. They can watch TV in the playroom. My daughter's smile fades a little. She asks if everything is okay. I reach back and squeeze her hand. I promise her that everything is going to be fine now. Better than fine. We're safe now. I walk them inside and get them settled with cartoons. Then I find Nathan in the kitchen. He's tall and looks tired. He has a notebook out and asks me to sit down. He walks me through what happened from his end. Carol told him she had permission to be there. She said she was picking up items for the children who were coming to stay with her. Nathan asked why she needed to break in if she had permission. Carol changed her story fast. She said she was worried about the children's safety. She needed to check on things. Nathan mentioned the security footage, and that's when Carol started crying. She said she just wanted to protect her grandchildren. She kept saying that over and over. Nathan tells me all this in a flat cop voice. He's seen people lie before. He knows what Carol was really doing. I pull out my laptop and give Nathan access to the security footage. We sit at the kitchen table and watch it together. He leans forward when Carol puts on the gloves. He points at the screen. "That shows planning," he says. "That shows she knew what she was doing was wrong." We watch her pack the suitcases. Nathan notes how careful she is, how organized. This wasn't panic or confusion. This was a plan. Then we get to the part where she takes the documents from my office. Nathan pauses the video. He points at each paper as Carol stuffs them in her purse. Birth certificates, social security cards, passports, medical records. He looks at me. This isn't someone worried about the kids. This is someone preparing to take them and disappear. He explains the charges. Breaking and entering for sure. Theft of legal documents. Possible attempted kidnapping. He says the DA will decide the final charges, but this footage makes the case easy. Nathan asks if there's history between me and Carol. I get up and pull out my documentation file from the drawer. I've been keeping everything since the CPS visit. I show him the CPS report first, then the incident reports from the school, the harassment complaint Quentin filed, the letter from Carol's lawyer demanding visitation. Nathan reads through everything slowly. His expression gets more serious with each page. He looks up at me. "This changes everything," he says. "This wasn't one bad decision. This is a pattern. This is escalating behavior." He takes photos of all my documents with his phone. He says the prosecutor will want to see all of this. It shows Carol has been building up to this for weeks. After Nathan leaves, I sit my kids down on the couch. I need to explain this in a way they'll understand without scaring them. I tell them Grandma Carol made some bad choices. She won't be visiting for a while. My daughter's face gets worried. She asks if Grandma is in trouble. I nod. Yes, she is. My son looks at me with these big, serious eyes. He asks if it's because of the people who came to check our house. My heart stops. He's connected the CPS visit to Carol. Kids are smarter than we think. I pull him close. I tell him Grandma was confused about what was best for them. But Mommy is making sure they're safe. That's my job. To keep them safe. Always. My daughter asks when they can see Grandma again. I don't know how to answer that. I just say not for a long time. Maybe never. But that's okay. We have each other. That's what matters. That night, after the kids are finally asleep, I call Quentin. My hands are shaking as I dial. He answers on the second ring, and I tell him everything. The movie, the break-in, the arrest, the footage, the documents Carol took. Quentin is quiet for a long moment. Then he laughs. Not a mean laugh. More like relief. He says this is actually better than he hoped. Carol's actions are so extreme that they kill any chance of her winning grandparents' rights. No judge will give her access after this. He explains that the criminal charges plus all the documentation create a case that's impossible to fight. Carol eliminated herself from the kids' lives. She did exactly what we needed her to do. She showed everyone who she really is. The next morning, my phone rings while I'm making breakfast. It's a number I recognize. Evelyn Perez from CPS. My stomach drops. She explains that the police contacted CPS about Carol's arrest. They reviewed the security footage and the original complaint. Evelyn's voice is different now. Softer. She apologizes for the trauma the investigation caused. She says they are now certain the original report was malicious and false. She's adding a note to our file. Any future complaints from Carol won't be taken seriously. They'll be flagged as harassment. I feel something release in my chest. The CPS nightmare is finally over. They believe me now. They know Carol lied. Then Evelyn tells me something that makes my blood go cold. When they looked into Carol's background, they found something. She's called CPS on 2 other families in the past 3 years. Both were her deceased husband's children from his first marriage. Both cases were investigated and found to be completely false. Carol has a pattern. She uses CPS as a weapon against family members she wants to control. This information is being shared with the prosecutor. Evelyn says it shows Carol is dangerous, not just to my family, to anyone who doesn't do what she wants. I thank Evelyn and hang up. I sit at the kitchen table staring at my coffee. Carol has done this before. She's destroyed other people's lives, and she almost destroyed mine. 2 days later, Quentin calls me. Carol's lawyer reached out to him trying to negotiate. They want the charges dropped. In exchange, Carol will agree to stay away from us, sign whatever papers we want, give up any claim to the kids. Quentin's response was immediate. Absolutely not. Carol committed multiple crimes on camera. She traumatized my children. She has a pattern of this behavior going back years. She's going to face the full consequences of her actions. No deals, no negotiations. She's going to trial, and she's going to prison. Quentin says it with such certainty that I almost feel bad for Carol. Almost. Then I remember my kids' nightmares. I remember the CPS workers in my house. I remember watching Carol pack those suitcases. Any sympathy I might have had disappears. Carol made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. The letter arrives on a Tuesday morning. I see Carol's handwriting on the envelope and my stomach turns. I carry it to the kitchen table and stare at it for 10 minutes before opening it. The paper inside is wrinkled and stained with what looks like tears. Carol's handwriting is shaky, nothing like her usual perfect script. She writes that she was only trying to help, that she loves the children more than anything in the world. She says my husband would want his children to know their grandmother, that grief made her act crazy and she didn't mean any harm. She begs me to understand, to forgive her, to let her see the kids again. The letter makes me so angry I have to stand up and pace around the kitchen. She's still not taking real responsibility. She's still making herself the victim. Still pretending she didn't plan everything, didn't pack those suitcases with gloves on, didn't steal our documents. She's rewriting history in her own mind, turning her calculated plan into a grief mistake. I want to write back and tell her exactly what I think of her lies. But I know better. I fold the letter and put it in my documentation file instead. I call Quentin that afternoon and tell him about the letter. He tells me not to respond under any circumstances. Anything I write could be twisted by Carol's defense lawyer and used against me. He explains that the prosecutor, Suzanne Doyle, is building a strong case with all the evidence we have. My job now is to focus on helping my children heal, while the legal system handles Carol. He says prosecutors love cases with this much documentation because it makes their job easy. The security footage alone is enough to convict, but everything else we have just makes the case stronger. I ask him what happens next, and he walks me through the timeline. There will be a preliminary hearing to determine if there's enough evidence for trial. Then if the judge decides there is, they'll set a trial date. The whole process could take months. I hang up feeling both relieved that professionals are handling this and frustrated that it will take so long. 3 weeks after Carol's arrest, I drive downtown to meet Suzanne Doyle at the prosecutor's office. The building is old and official looking, with marble floors and high ceilings. Suzanne meets me in a small conference room on the 3rd floor. She's younger than I expected, maybe 40. With dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She has a thick file folder in front of her and a laptop open showing the security footage. She tells me she's reviewed everything, The videos from my house, all the documentation of harassment, the CPS history, the stolen documents. She explains they're charging Carol with 4 crimes: breaking and entering because she used the key without permission, attempted kidnapping because she was packing to take the children, theft of legal documents for the birth certificates and passports, and conspiracy to commit custodial interference for the whole plan. She says the combined charges carry serious prison time, possibly 10 to 15 years if Carol is convicted on all counts. I feel dizzy hearing the numbers. 15 years means my kids will be grown before Carol gets out. Suzanne must see my face because she stops and asks if I'm okay. I tell her I'm fine, just processing everything. Suzanne asks me about my husband's relationship with his mother. I explain that he loved Carol, but he saw through her controlling behavior. He set boundaries with her that she constantly pushed against. I tell Suzanne about the time Carol tried to convince us to use her pediatrician instead of ours because she thought our doctor was too young. My husband backed me up and told his mother we were happy with our choice. Another time, Carol showed up at our house with paint samples because she thought our living room color was too dark. My husband told her we liked it and she needed to respect our decisions. Suzanne writes notes while I talk. She says this is helpful because it shows Carol's claim about honoring her son's wishes is false. My husband clearly wanted me to be the primary parent and made that obvious when he was alive. Carol is just using his death as an excuse to try taking control. 2 months after Carol's arrest, Quentin calls to tell me the preliminary hearing is scheduled. He needs to prepare me for what to expect. Carol will be in the courtroom, sitting at the defense table with her lawyer. Her lawyer will try to paint her as a grieving grandmother who made a mistake out of concern for the children. The prosecutor will present evidence to show there's enough cause for a trial. I'll probably need to testify briefly. Quentin tells me to stay calm and stick to facts, not emotions. We spend the next week practicing my testimony. He asks me questions and I answer them, focusing on what happened rather than how I felt about it. He teaches me to pause before answering, to not let the defense lawyer rush me or confuse me. He reminds me that the truth is on my side, and I just need to tell it clearly. The week before the hearing, Quentin calls with news that makes my blood run cold. Carol made bail. Her lawyer argued she's not a flight risk because she has no criminal record and strong ties to the community. The judge agreed but set strict conditions. Carol cannot contact me or the children in any way. She cannot come within 500 feet of our home or the kids' school. She has to wear an ankle monitor, so the police can track her location. Quentin tries to reassure me that violating these conditions would only make things worse for Carol. But I'm scared. What if she shows up at the house again? What if she tries to grab the kids from the school? I spend the next few days checking the security cameras constantly and driving the kids to and from the school myself instead of letting them take the bus. The preliminary hearing happens on a cold morning in March. I dress carefully in a navy blue suit that makes me look professional and serious. Quentin meets me outside the courtroom and we go in together. The room is smaller than I expected, with wooden benches and fluorescent lights. Carol sits at the defense table with her lawyer. She's lost weight since her arrest. Her clothes hang loose on her frame and her face looks older, more lined. When she sees me walk in, she starts crying. She reaches toward me like she wants to hug me or touch me. Her lawyer, a woman in a gray suit, grabs Carol's arm and pulls her back down. The bailiff steps forward and warns Carol to stay seated. The judge, an older man with gray hair and glasses, reviews the evidence that Suzanne presents. He looks at the security footage on a screen set up in the courtroom. He reads through the police reports and the documentation of harassment. After about an hour, he announces there's enough evidence for this case to go to trial. He sets a trial date for 3 months later. Carol's lawyer, Desiree Chopra, stands up and tries to argue that Carol had permission to be in the house. She says Carol was simply collecting items she thought the children needed, that she was acting out of love and concern. Suzanne stands up and asks the judge to play the security footage again. We all watch Carol put on gloves before entering the house. We watch her pack the suitcases methodically, checking each item. We watch her take the documents from my office and stuff them in her purse. The judge watches without expression. When the video ends, he denies the motion to dismiss. He says the evidence clearly shows planning and intent, not a grandmother's confused mistake. Carol's face crumbles when he says this. Desiree whispers something to her and Carol nods, wiping her eyes. The judge sets the trial date for June and reminds Carol of her bail conditions. If she violates them even once, she goes back to jail immediately. The next 3 months feel long and strange. I focus on building normal life for my kids. We go to therapy every week, sometimes together and sometimes separately. My daughter's nightmares about being taken away start happening less often. She used to wake up crying 3 or 4 times a week. Now it's maybe once every 2 weeks. My son starts smiling more, laughing at jokes again. They ask about Grandma Carol sometimes. My daughter wants to know when they can see her. My son asks if Grandma is mad at us. I tell them the truth in ways they can understand. Grandma made choices that weren't safe. She has to face consequences for those choices. It's not their fault, and it's not about them. Sometimes grown-ups make bad decisions and have to deal with what happens after. They seem to accept this explanation, at least for now. Carol violates her bail conditions twice during those 3 months. The first time she drives past the kids' school during pickup time. The ankle monitor alerts the police and they call her to ask what she's doing in that area. Carol claims she was just driving through the neighborhood, that she forgot about the distance restriction. The police document the violation and report it to the judge. The second time, a card arrives at our house addressed to the children. Inside is a birthday card for my son with $20 and a note saying, "Grandma loves you and misses you." This clearly violates the no contact order. I take photos of the card and envelope and send them to Quentin. He forwards them to Suzanne. Each violation gets added to the prosecution's file. Suzanne tells me these violations are actually helpful to our case because they show Carol cannot follow rules or respect boundaries. They prove she's a danger to my family and cannot be trusted. 1 week before the trial, my phone rings while I'm making lunch. Suzanne's name shows on the screen. I answer and she tells me Desiree made an offer. Carol will plead guilty to breaking and entering. In exchange, she gets probation and mandatory counseling. No jail time. My hand tightens around the phone. Suzanne asks what I think and I don't even need to consider it. I tell her no. Carol traumatized my kids. She called CPS knowing it would scare them. She packed suitcases to take them away from the only parent they have left. She stole their documents like they were hers to take. And through all of it, she's never shown real remorse. Just self-pity about how grief made her act crazy. If she gets probation, she'll wait a year or 2 and try again. She'll convince herself enough time has passed and I've forgiven her. She'll show up at their school or send cards or find some new way to worm back into our lives. I tell Suzanne that Carol needs to face real consequences, or this never ends. Suzanne is quiet for a moment, then says she agrees. She tells me to be ready for trial on Monday. The morning arrives cold and gray. I dress in a navy suit and drive downtown to the courthouse. The building is old stone with tall columns out front. Inside, the floors are marble and my shoes click as I walk. Suzanne meets me outside the courtroom. She's wearing a black suit and carrying a leather briefcase. She asks if I'm ready and I nod, even though my stomach is twisted in knots. We go inside together. The courtroom is smaller than I expected. Wooden benches line both sides with an aisle down the middle. The judge's bench sits high at the front. The prosecutor's table is on the right and the defense table on the left. I sit behind Suzanne at the prosecutor's table. Carol is already there with Desiree. Carol's wearing a gray dress that hangs loose on her frame. She won't look at me. She keeps her eyes down on the table in front of her. Desiree leans over and whispers something to her. The bailiff calls the court to order and everyone stands as the judge enters. He's the same judge from the preliminary hearing. He sits down and tells everyone else to sit. Then the jury selection begins. They bring in potential jurors one by one. Suzanne and Desiree ask them questions. Do you have grandchildren? Have you ever been involved in a custody dispute? Can you be fair and impartial? After 2 hours, they've selected 12 people, 7 women and 5 men. These 12 people will decide if Carol goes to prison. The judge tells Suzanne to give her opening statement. She stands and walks to face the jury. She introduces herself and explains what this case is about. She talks about Carol's pattern of harassment after my husband died, the false CPS report that traumatized 2 young children, the escalating behavior at the school and in public, then the break-in and attempted kidnapping. She explains that Carol used her key without permission, packed suitcases with the children's belongings, and stole legal documents she'd need to take them across state lines. She tells the jury this wasn't a grandmother's confused mistake. It was a calculated plan to take children from their surviving parent. She says the evidence will show premeditation, planning, and complete disregard for the law. When Suzanne sits down, Desiree stands up. She walks to the jury, and her voice is soft and sympathetic. She talks about Carol as a grieving mother who lost her only son. She describes Carol's close relationship with her grandchildren and her genuine concern for their welfare. She argues that Carol acted out of love, not malice, that grief made her judgment poor, that she truly believed the children needed her help. She asks the jury to consider the context of loss and trauma. When Desiree sits down, Carol is crying quietly into a tissue. The prosecution's case takes 3 days. On the first day, Suzanne presents the security footage. The courtroom has a large screen set up and everyone watches Carol enter my house with gloves on. We watch her move through the rooms methodically. We watch her pack the suitcases with careful precision. We watch her take the documents from my office and put them in her purse. The footage is damning. There's no way to explain away the gloves or the planning. After the video, Suzanne calls Nathan to the stand. He describes responding to my 911 call and finding Carol loading suitcases into her car. He testifies about the packed belongings and the stolen documents in her purse. He explains that Carol initially claimed she had permission, then changed her story when he mentioned the security cameras. Desiree tries to make it sound like a misunderstanding during cross-examination, but Nathan stays firm on the facts. On the second day, Suzanne calls Evelyn from CPS. Evelyn testifies about the false report and the investigation. She describes how Carol provided specific details about our home and routine that only someone with access would know. Then Evelyn drops the information about Carol's history. She explains that Carol called CPS on 2 other family members in the past 3 years. Both reports were unfounded, and both were against people who had custody of children Carol wanted access to. The jury members lean forward, paying close attention. Desiree objects, but the judge allows it because it shows a pattern of behavior. Next, Suzanne calls the school principal. She describes Carol showing up at the school multiple times, approaching teachers, trying to observe my son's classroom. She testifies about having to flag Carol in their system and ban her from campus. On the third day, Suzanne calls me. I walk to the witness stand and the bailiff swears me in. Suzanne asks me to describe my relationship with Carol before my husband died. I explain that it was cordial but strained. Carol was controlling and tried to override our parenting decisions. My husband always backed me up and set boundaries with his mother. Then Suzanne asks about after his death. I describe the funeral, where Carol held my hand and seemed supportive. Then 3 weeks later, the CPS visit. I talk about my kids' nightmares and their fear of being taken away. I describe the grocery store incident where Carol yelled at me in public, the school visits, the surveillance driving past my house. I explain how I installed security cameras because I felt unsafe. Then I described the day of the break-in, how we went to the movies and I got the motion alert, how I watched Carol pack my children's belongings like she had every right to take them, how she stole their birth certificates and passports. I testify for 2 hours. When Suzanne finishes, Desiree stands up for cross-examination. She tries to make me look vindictive. She asks if I kept the children from Carol out of spite, if I wanted revenge for past conflicts, if I exaggerated Carol's behavior to make her look worse. I stay calm and factual, just like Quentin taught me. I answer each question simply and clearly. No, I didn't keep the children from Carol. I offered supervised visits and she refused. No, I'm not exaggerating. I have documentation of every incident. No, this isn't about revenge. This is about protecting my children from someone who tried to kidnap them. When I step down from the stand, my legs are shaking, but I made it through. The defense case is weak. Desiree calls 3 of Carol's friends to testify. They all say the same thing. Carol is a loving grandmother. She's a good person. She'd never hurt anyone. They talk about how much she loved her son and how devastated she was by his death. But none of them can explain away the security footage or the stolen documents. Then Desiree calls a psychologist who testifies about grief-induced poor judgment. He talks about how trauma can make people act irrationally, how Carol's behavior could be explained by her mental state after losing her son. But on cross-examination, Suzanne asks him if grief excuses breaking into someone's home, if trauma justifies packing suitcases to take children without permission, if loss makes it okay to file false reports with CPS. He admits it doesn't. Desiree never puts Carol on the stand. Everyone knows why. Suzanne would destroy her under cross-examination. The security footage is too clear. The pattern of behavior too obvious. After 2 days, the defense rests. The jury deliberates for 6 hours. I sit in the hallway outside the courtroom with Suzanne, waiting. Every time the door opens, I jump. But it's just the bailiff checking on something or a lawyer from another case walking past. Then the bailiff comes out and tells us the jury has reached a verdict. We go back into the courtroom. Carol sits at the defense table with Desiree. Her hands are clasped together on the table and she's staring straight ahead. The jury files in and takes their seats. The judge asks if they've reached a verdict. The foreman stands and says they have. The judge tells him to read it. Guilty on count 1, breaking and entering. Guilty on count 2, attempted kidnapping. Guilty on count 3, theft of legal documents. Guilty on count 4, conspiracy to commit custodial interference. Carol's face crumbles as each verdict is read. She puts her head down on the table and her shoulders shake with sobs. Desiree puts a hand on her back but doesn't say anything. The judge thanks the jury and sets sentencing for 2 weeks later. Then he tells the bailiff to remand Carol to custody immediately. Carol looks up at that, her face wet with tears. The bailiff walks over and pulls her to her feet. He puts handcuffs on her wrists. As he leads her toward the door, Carol finally looks at me. Her mouth moves and I can read the words. I'm sorry, but it's too late for apologies. Too late for anything except the consequences she brought on herself. 2 weeks later, we're back in the courtroom for sentencing. Judge Cole Hogan sits at his bench with Carol's file open in front of him. He reviews her history out loud. The harassment after my husband's death. The false CPS report. The escalating behavior. The break-in and attempted kidnapping. He notes that Carol showed a pattern of manipulation, that she used government systems as weapons against people she wanted to control, that she planned the kidnapping with premeditation, buying suitcases and researching custody laws. He says the evidence shows she's a danger to my family and cannot be trusted to follow rules or respect boundaries. Then he announces the sentence. 15 years in prison. 5 years for each major charge, to be served one after another instead of at the same time. Carol sobs so loudly the judge has to pause twice while reading the sentence. Desiree stands and argues for leniency. She talks about Carol's age and health. She mentions that Carol has no prior criminal record. She asks the judge to consider probation or a shorter sentence. But the judge is unmoved. He says Carol's lack of criminal history is offset by her pattern of using legal systems to harm others. He says her age doesn't excuse her actions. He says the sentence stands. As we leave the courtroom, I feel something release in my chest. It's like I've been holding my breath for months and can finally exhale. My children are safe. Carol can't hurt them anymore. She can't show up at their school or call CPS or try to take them. For the next 15 years, they can grow up without fear. 3 months later, the first letter arrives from prison. Carol's handwriting on the envelope. Inside, she begs to see photos of the kids. She says she made mistakes, but she's still their grandmother. She asks if we can start fresh when she gets out. I don't read past the first paragraph. I write return to sender on the envelope and put it back in the mail. Every letter she sends after that gets the same treatment. We're building a new life now. One where we don't live in fear. One where my kids can be kids without worrying about being taken away. And that's exactly what my husband would have wanted for us.